There's a ritual that plays out over and over again in human history, in personal relationships, in politics, and even in entire belief systems. It's the ritual of scapegoating, and at its core is the false martyr, the narcissist disguised as a victim. Scapegoating is an ancient practice. It was once literal. People would place their sins onto an animal and cast it out or kill it, believing this act purified the community. But today, the ritual is psychological. The sins of the false martyr get transferred onto someone else, and that person is sacrificed instead. In the deepest layers of this ritual lies a hidden purpose: to avoid karmic debt. Karmic debt, in its truest form, is the natural consequence of our actions, the unseen balance of energy that must be repaid. The narcissist understands this concept instinctively. They are fully aware that their actions will eventually require payment, but instead of accepting responsibility, they manipulate the story to shift the karmic burden onto someone else. This scapegoating mechanism ensures that the false martyr, the narcissist, avoids the natural consequences of their harmful actions by framing the real victim as the abuser. By creating a false narrative, one in which the narcissist is the victim and the true victim is the abuser, they transfer their karmic debt. The real victim is marked, not just with the false identity of an abuser, but with the spiritual, psychological, and emotional weight of guilt, shame, and blame that belongs to the true perpetrator. But the ritual doesn't end with the narcissist alone. The system of people who believe the narcissist story take an active role in this process. They, too, become complicit in the cycle. As they accept the false narrative, they essentially place their own sins onto the victim as well. By supporting the lie, they too avoid facing the discomfort of questioning the narcissist's actions or taking responsibility for their own role in perpetuating the falsehood. They join the ritual, becoming part of the collective karmic debt that burdens the real victim. This narcissistic system of the narcissist and their believers create the ultimate inversion: false victim, false abuser. For every real victim in this world, there is a false one. For every real abuser, there is an innocent person framed as one. Narcissists always operate in this inversion. They use real scenarios of abuse and suffering as a template, then flip the roles, weaponizing victimhood to gain power. This is why the deepest level of narcissistic abuse often goes unseen. Here's how it works. The setup: the false martyr, a narcissist in disguise, creates tension, provokes, and manipulates, but in a way that stays hidden. They push their target to react. The switch: the moment the target finally breaks down, speaks up, or pushes back, the false martyr flips the story. They make sure only their own suffering is visible, while the abuse they caused is erased. The performance: the false martyr plays the role of the suffering victim. They cry, they act broken, they rally others to their side. The more dramatic their suffering appears, the stronger the illusion. The scapegoat is marked, the real victim is now seen as the villain. They are blamed, attacked, shunned, and punished, all in the name of justice. The more they try to clear their name, the worse it gets. False karma is created, because so many people believe the lie, it becomes a reality. The scapegoat dies with a false identity of an abuser. The false martyr lives as a survivor, victim, saint surrounded by care and community that subscribed to their false perception. The story is passed down, and even after death, the illusion remains. This is why justice so often never happens. Many people have died falsely seen as abusers when they never were. Many people have lived in comfort and protection, worshipped as victims when they never were. And because false narratives spread like wildfire, there is no way to undo them. If you try to tell the truth, people will only see it as further proof of guilt. The lie becomes reality. It creates karmic debts. This is why false martyrdom is one of the most dangerous forms of manipulation. It turns people into weapons. It makes good people fight for the wrong side. It keeps the real victim silent and invisible. False martyrs don't just manipulate people. They create a belief system, religion around themselves. A belief is a false perception, not truth. It is a carefully planted lie that is designed to replace reality. And the more people who accept the belief without question, the stronger it becomes. This is exactly how religion, propaganda, and narcissistic abuse work. They condition people not to question. Religious and societal programming teaches obedience to the word. Questioning is framed as dangerous, heretical, and evil. This is a ready tool built by narcissists of higher power for narcissists of lower power to use. A fractal of abuse that is then replicated on all levels and scales. Belief is presented as a moral duty and the truth. Doubt is punished. As a result, the belief, which is actually a lie, becomes the accepted truth within the narcissistic system. Those who are under the influence of the narcissist, often a vast and powerful network, are manipulated into accepting this false truth. The narcissist ensures their influence is far greater than that of the victim, leaving the actual truth with no chance of being heard or spread. This dynamic makes it impossible for the true victim to be recognized or believed, and the false narrative is reinforced and accepted by the larger group. Victim blaming is seen as wrong, which protects real victims but also shields false ones. Narcissists exploit this conditioning. They use the idea that victims must always be protected, so if someone questions them, they cry out, "You're blaming the victim." They use the idea that belief must be blind, so when someone asks for proof, they say, "How dare you doubt my suffering?" They use the idea that truth doesn't need evidence, so their truth is just accepted without question. This is why false martyrs never allow investigation. The moment you try to check the facts, they call in the mob to silence you. And the mob obeys, because they have been programmed to. Many false martyrs don't just frame their victim. They push them until they actually break. They provoke and torment them for months, years, even decades, until the victim finally snaps. They transform the victim into themselves, and themselves into a victim. And when they do, that moment is captured, broadcasted, and turned into the unshakable proof that the victim was the abuser all along. It sounds sick, because it is. And it works. A person who has been mentally and emotionally tortured for years finally explodes in anger. The false martyr plays the recording of their outburst, but never the years of abuse leading up to it. A person who has been systematically drained, manipulated, and isolated finally retaliates. The false martyr shows the evidence they manufactured through making a person actually hurt them, but never the psychological torment that drove their victim to the edge. A person who has been gaslit and erased until they lose all sense of reality finally lashes out. The false martyr presents this as proof that they were the real target all along. And once that proof exists, the victim is finished. Nobody will ever question the false martyr's story again. Nobody will ever see the truth of what actually happened. And the real victim will die as an outcast, an abuser, a monster. This is the deepest level of narcissistic abuse. The one that completely rewrites reality, permanently inverts roles, and erases the truth forever. The reason this works so well is because false victimhood is the best disguise, offers enormous social benefits for the false victim, and is an ultimate way of silencing and framing the real victim. There is no one who validates their perception. There is a double bind, their abuse and the social abuse. False martyrs know this. That's why they don't just play the victim, they hide inside victimhood itself. And if anyone tries to challenge them? Society, conditioned to protect victims, immediately attacks anyone who questions their narrative. They invoke the cultural and religious programming of belief. Just like dogma, their suffering must be accepted without evidence or scrutiny. They use real cases of abuse to justify their own deception. Because there are real victims in the world, they blend in effortlessly, using the moral shield that protects true survivors. This is how false karma is created. The real victim is never vindicated. The false martyr is never exposed. And the lie becomes history. The reality we live in is actually completely a world built on false stories like this. It's pervasive. This is the deepest level of narcissistic abuse. It isn't just about harming individuals, it's about rewriting reality itself. Many people have died carrying false blame that was never theirs. Many people have lived being worshipped as victims when they were the ones who caused harm. And most of history is written based on false martyrdom, because once enough people believe a lie, it becomes the truth forever. The entire world functions on this system. What we know as truth is often nothing more than the story that one. And this is why false martyrdom is so powerful. It doesn't just change individual lives. It rewrites the past, controls the present, and programs the future.